Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hi everyone, it's Marie-Ève Mongrain. I am this French Quebecoise from Canada, and it's Me Time podcast right now, and we are with Dr. V. Do you prefer we call you Dr. V or Dr. Vernita?
You can do Dr. V. I like that. That's easier.
Oh, amazing. So today, just for those who are new with me here, we are broadcasting on different, sorry, different, oh my goodness, I just lost the word. Platforms, that's the word. You know, we're not perfect, and I am assuming myself 100% and all my mistakes and I know everything is just channeled through, so there's no worries here. So today we are with the amazing Dr. Vernita. Want to tell us a little bit about you and who you are and why we're talking together today?
Okay, so I'm going to try to condense this because my story is super long, but the short version is I started off as a K-12 teacher teaching mathematics, and then I transitioned to working with high school teachers, and I was over the mathematics department. And then I realized that we were having so many people coming into our school system telling us that we're not good teachers, the students are doing horrible, the school isn't performing. And then I realized like all of these people were trying to tell us what to do, and they didn't have any background in mathematics. And I'm like, how are you going to tell us what to do? And you don't even know what you're talking about. So I decided, I was like, what can I do to come back and tell these people what to do? So I did. So I wanted to be like the US Secretary of Education, because I was like, I'm going to be all of their bosses. And so I was like, well, maybe I need to get a doctorate degree, you know? And so I was like, all right, fine, I'll go get a doctorate degree. But then I was like, well, I need something that none of these people have so that I can stand out. So like it was at a spur of the moment, I was like, oh, I'm going to go get my PhD in math. And then I was like, okay. But something happened when I did that. My mind started expanding more about what it meant to really teach and learn. And then during my whole research project, you know, I just really started getting into understanding why people didn't like mathematics or what was happening in the education profession. Then I went to go be a college professor, even though I didn't want to be. I was like, but I couldn't go back to the K-12 system. I didn't want to do that anymore. So I went to become a college professor. And that was, you know, I started to enjoy it. I started to make moves. And then I realized that some of my students, they were going to be future teachers and future administrators. They had these limiting beliefs about how students could learn. And some of them were insensitive culturally, because I was like a lot of their first Black female professor. They had never had that before in all of their 21 plus years of schooling. And I had to put mathematics on pause and had to start dealing with the person, because so I started doing like research on my students. So I started doing research projects on them. And then I was going through some of my own things, like dealing with imposter syndrome, even though I don't like the word imposter syndrome, but I understand where it comes from.
When I say why you don't like this word?
Because it's like, is it a sickness? Am I really an imposter? Am I really frauding myself? So when I looked at the word separately, I was like, that really doesn't match, you know, but it's become so common that people automatically understand what it means. But I was like, I'm not being a fraud to myself. I just felt like I didn't belong. Even though I had my doctorate degree, I had, you know, got the job and I did all of the things, but I still felt out of place. And then working with my students, I realized that I was suffering personally. So I had put all of my time into my professional career, but I wasn't taking care of myself personally. And that extended all the way back to when I was in my doctoral program and all of the things, but I had buried it down. I was like, whatever, don't be human, pretty much, you know, you have to finish. Yes. And then it's like when I was working, it was like, don't be human because you got to exceed. So in the college life, there are different levels to become a professor. So working with my students, I realized, and it started shifting things in me. So then I went to this conference because I was like, well, I don't want to be a professor anymore. I want to be a speaker. Now, I was already speaking because that's what we have to do as a professor. We have to write articles, we have to go speak and teach and all of that. But I wanted to be like a really good speaker because all of our conferences are boring. you know, they're not
Watching the world.
yeah. And then people who go to those conferences, when they say, oh, this person is a really good speaker, and then you look at them and it's like, seriously? So I was in a funk on my grandmother's couch, like day after day. And I was like, okay, what can I do? And I started looking up Les Brown. He started coming around. I've seen Tony Robbins. And I was like, well, do they have any women? You know? And then like I saw Marie Forleo and Mel Robbins, and I was like, are there any women that look like me? And somehow Lisa Nichols popped up. And then I saw her videos and all of that. And I was like, yes, I want to do that. But so I started, you know, I did the speaking things with her, but what I didn't realize was the importance of personal development. And when I started knowing like that was kind of her thing, I was like, oh, this is what I've been trying to do with my students. This is why I feel this disruption. So I took all of that, and now I want to help other high-level professional women to deal with their personal trauma and their personal glass ceilings, so they can excel professionally. Because I was still doing great in my professional life, but I knew that there were things that were keeping me stuck. You know, on the outside, I was like, oh, you're doing great. But I knew that I wanted to go in a particular direction. And the only thing that was holding me back was myself. Same thing with my students. And I was like, you can't be a great educator or a great leader if you don't fix what's inside of you. So,
and just by the way, there's no need to fix, right? Nothing is broken. We're not broken people. Just want to, people say, I feel broken. You just want to improve because you want to feel better, right? It's not because you're broken. That's a great point.
You're uncovering, you're putting the pieces back together, because you're right. You come in whole anyway. Like, you're perfect when you're born. It's just life becomes life, and it, you know, kind of mixes it up. But when you're doing personal growth, you're just uncovering what you had buried before. So yeah, you're not fixing yourself. You are putting the pieces back together.
You're rediscovering your true self.
Mm-hmm.
And right. that's such a fun, I know sometimes it will be hard. I know for my own journey, it was hard because my husband passed away. So finding who I was before meeting him, even because I discovered self-love. It's like, oh, did I really love him? Did I really love the people I was hanging around? Because I didn't love myself. Like, I was transposing. I was like attachment issues and not wanting to be left. And when I found out my own self-love, it's like, holy crap. Was that real love? And then it was so confusing. So in the personal growth, there's this part, like, it's not all like light and rainbows. There is the shadow work that we're doing. That's we can say it's hard, because it's really hard when to go into that, because we want to feel safe, right? It's hard to do it because when we grow up, the reason why we have those pieces all in weird places is because we've taken from all the people around us. Yep. And now we're just releasing what doesn't belong to us anymore, to our own truth. And then we just keep whatever is us. And it's so nice. And I do love how you're saying the imposter syndrome, it's like feeling like fraud, because there's this part of me, you know, not a core belief, but it's like, I don't want, like, I know people say, oh, you're such a good mom. Like, yes, but look behind the scene, you don't see that, right? I feel like a fraud when I receive compliments, and I know I'm not the only one out there. So what have you done yourself to get out of that feeling?
Right. So it was like this parallel thing happening. I was trying to work with my students, and then when I met Lisa, it was deeper than speaking. And so here's the thing: when you're talking about people don't want to do the shadow work, when I went to her an event of hers, like, it was like a world, like, I was like, who are these strange people, you know, in this space? Like, everyone was weird to me. I was like, okay, people are like hugging and talking and clapping, and I was like, oh, we don't do this. So I was like, no, I don't want to do this. So when her business partner came up, Susie, she was talking about business. So then I was like, okay, forget all of this other stuff. I'm going to do the business stuff. Even though my soul was saying, like, I was so focused on Lisa, but I was like, yeah, but this feels weird. So I'm going to shift, because I wanted to start I was on paper, I had started a consulting business, but it was like on paper, but I was like, okay, I really want to consult. So I focused on Susie and did all of that. And then I found myself not showing up to the calls, or if I did, my camera was off. I didn't do like all of the work. I was feeling like, who am I to be around these people who were making like these millions of dollars? And I was like, oh, this is not where I'm supposed to be. And I went into a deeper, darker hole of feeling like, oh crap. It didn't matter that I was doctor, because some of these people had no degrees and they were doing like so much better than I was personally and professionally. So she had a live event for the business part, but then Lisa was there also. And then again, that personal development came, in the back room. And she talked to us about this retreat. And it was the Dynamic Women's Retreat that she was hosting for Black American women, or just Black women from any parts, just Black women in general. And I had never done anything like that before, but I felt that I just kept crying and crying. I was like, what is this? And then one of the ladies, Nikki, she just like tapped me on my shoulder. She was like, your soul knows what you need. And I was like, that's weird, but okay. And I signed up. And it was spent like 7 days in Turks and Caicos, like doing this real deep dive, the shadow work you talked about. And I was like, whoa. Now, I had been reading self-help books and watching the YouTube videos and watching some of Lisa's videos. And it was good then. No, until I got in it. And I shared things I had never shared before. I never said it before then. I never said it after then. I went through actual exercises because I'm a practical person. Like, I do love theory. That's part of the research I am, but I'm also a practitioner. So I was like, okay, well, how does this actually work? So we actually had to do real exercise and do the work. And that opened up my mind and my heart. Like it was a different part of me that I didn't know I was overlooking. And so that's how I got myself out of this whole like depression. I was in a depression, which people are like, how, and you were still progressing. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of the dangerous part about, being so good professionally, that you can hide. And nobody was calling me out, so I didn't have to show up. But when I went to that retreat, it didn't matter any of my titles, and we didn't share titles, and you didn't realize who people were until like the very, very end. Like, we had Google executives there. We had space engineers there. We had CEOs there. And I was like, wow. But we didn't know that, because it was like all of us at these high levels have these issues. So anyway.
It's just normal. We meet people like us. We're a high level being. We meet them. And just for those who don't know, Dr. Vernita and Dr. V and I, we come from Lisa Speaker Mastermind, right? Yes. We are on our campus, and that's how we know each other. I've been on our campus for the past 2 years. And for me, as you're mentioning, right, the doctor title, sometimes we want to, if we feel like a fraud within, we may want to go and reach out on the outside to fill the void of what's missing, right? If you feel like a fraud, having the PhD, you think that would make you feel better, but it's not, right? Because it's the feeling, it's not what. So we're going to pursue those things outside of us for that feeling. So I'm so happy you got to do this. But when I saw you, and I'm like, Dr. V, how can I compete with the doctors, right? There's so much respect. Lisa had so much respect for you. And I don't remember the other doctor that were on the calls, but I'm like, here I am, just a little widow, sharing a little story here. And I felt the imposter syndrome, like saying, who am I? It was the exact same thing with you. Who am I? The money wise, the book wise, I didn't really care, but I'm like, she's giving so much respect to her. And not that she was not giving respect to me, but I didn't feel the same. I didn't feel as important as you. And so, but now that comes from within, right? What we see in others is how we see ourselves. So until we figure out, if we can give her importance because she has a name, how about I give that importance to myself, put myself on that pedestal, and then my energy will reflect that outside. I don't need a title. Now I'm going with Mariev is the title. Mariev Mongrain is I don't need anything. I don't need anything else. That's it, right? But that's when you start, people will be like, who does she think she is? Well, I'm Mariev Mongrain, right? So but it comes from believing. 3 years ago, I would not have been able to say that. I'm like, exactly. It's just me, right? I was just a teacher, right? I was a teacher too. It's awesome. I was a teacher too. And I have a minor in math because I love math. Yes, I know. Like, And I do believe, yes, that we need to bring in the school system more personal development. They all, for the teachers, they have all these professional development, but it just teaches them more skills on how to deal with behaviors. We don't care. I offer a seminar about love attraction and how to go within so that the outside reflects that, right? Because the people, the kids' behaviors, the student behaviors is only a reflection of how I feel within. So if I feel incompetent, I'm gonna get the class that may be disruptive, or like they're gonna reflect and trigger emotions within myself. So when you know about love attraction and these kids are meant with you, it's not because the principal said, well, this kid is going to your class. The principals is acting on the energy like of the kids and of you, and everything is, the person is just there to separate the people, but it's not because they want on you, right? It's just energetically wise, that kid need that teacher. And I know there's a lot of teacher out there, and maybe you can speak about that, where they're like, I don't feel I have what it takes to help that kid. I don't feel like I got all the resources to help that one special kid. Or like, I don't like to say special needs, because all needs are needs, right? It's not just special, just we like to label them. But when that teacher feels that they're not good enough, that's where my work, and I'm assuming your work too, is to say, you are good enough. That child is in your classroom because you're exactly the person they need with the resources and tools that you have. Because one thing that it's important to know is that we're whole already, and we always have what we need within us. If we don't know it, it's because we don't need it yet. Because I've learned as I go like along my journey, something that I need will come up just before I need it, right? Even when I work with clients, oh, this morning I had this breakthrough. Oh, good, this client needed me to have this breakthrough this morning, right? So for those teachers out there, because for me, education is a big cause that I really, really feel we should talk more, and especially helping those teachers to not be the wounded teacher, right? We have wounded healers. Well, I feel we have wounded teachers too. Do you agree?
So I've been struggling with this, because once I learned about the whole personal development space, I wanted to just go help women that were in professional spaces and help them. But then I kept feeling this pull to go back to the education system. And I do have a technique to work with them on the skill set side, but I was like, it's deeper than that, because once my mind got expanded of how big the world is, I was like, the education profession as a whole is a very low vibration. And I started learning about the laws of the universe, and not like in the woo-woo way, like I learned in the scientific way, because some people are like, they think it's strange. And I was like, but it's not really strange.
Quantum physics. It's quantum physics.
It really is. And I'm like so intrigued by it. So when I started this journey and all of that, I was like, oh my gosh, you're looking at like the personal growth industry, the business industry, the technology industry. A lot of those major players are vibrating at this high energy or this high frequency. And then when we look at the education profession, they're wondering like, why aren't teachers getting paid more? Why are administrators burning out? Or why are we stuck in the same place that we've been now for 75 years? The school system has technically been the same, and everyone else is advancing. I was like, it's a low vibration. It's the energy. And then I started breaking it down. I was like, they don't focus on health and wellness for the whole person, whether that's the teacher or the leader. The finances, people always talk about that. I was like, but they're attracting the personal finances, their own money story. And that's reflecting as a collective group. And then I was like, you can go into spirituality, however they want to define it. And then networking. I mean, we can go on and on, but I started really looking at it like, oh, wow, we totally ignored this part of the whole human being. And now we're putting them in charge of other human beings. And they're just giving off what they're giving off in its subconscious. So I've been trying to figure out my way to get into the school system. So I was like, maybe I need to use my background as STEM and then kind of, backdoor it in. I was able to do that with one school district. It wasn't with STEM, but it was culturally responsiveness. And they brought me in to do consulting work on that. And then I was like, okay, here's my chance to try it. So I didn't go deep into the quantum leaps and quantum physics and all of that, but I started like with core values. And does your core values align with what you're doing at the school district? And then I was like, let's do who are you as a person? Let's start identifying you and what's on the deeper layer. So we kind of did some work like that. And it was eye-opening. And I had grown men saying, oh my gosh, I'm like 40, 50 years old. And I never saw myself in a certain way. Now I see why I've been leading teachers and leading my school district the way I've been leading, because of the place where I felt like I was invisible. And I was like, whoa. So I hope that answered your question. Like, I totally get it. I haven't figured it out yet, but it is, I can see where the laws of attraction and all of the laws of the universe can have a place in the education system. To speak exactly what you were saying, I don't work directly too much with teachers, but it's the same thing. They're attracting those.
If we go with law of attraction, one in alignment is worth more than a million in non-alignment, right? So if you work with the head of a business or with the principal, then being in alignment will shift. So the people who are not aligned to that principle will just say, well, I'm going to resign. Exactly. Just energetically. So people are getting out of the door just energetically. And you're like, well, because for them, they're going to realize stuff. The universe works behind the scene and makes like, hey, you don't want to be here anymore, right? You don't like this school anyway. So by aligning with the head of whatever business, we're getting, it's not that they're bad people, right? They just, for them, it's growth for them as well. They're unhappy at a place. So the universe will either get them fired, which because being fired is a good thing. It just means you don't vibrate with the person with the business anymore. Doesn't matter how you get fired. On time. You didn't leave when you were supposed to leave. I know that personally. Well, actually, you left when you were supposed to leave. You just, because if you don't take the step by yourself to leave when you feel uncomfortable, like, well, I need the money or whatever, right? We still have the lack mindset. The universe will step in and do something. So that's why I'm like, if you get COVID, it's because you couldn't take time off for yourself. If you get whatever, right? You were not stopping yourself to just think what you needed really at the moment. So life steps in and it's amazing. And I love how you sing the school system is kind of in a low vibe, because the teachers, we're learning that being a good person means give, overgive, don't count your time, don't do this, right? And as you're going through within, we don't want to, like, we're starting to say, well, I'm going to give myself that love and give myself, I don't need to work at home, right? I'm not paid. We're starting to see our value. And I'm pretty sure by us ourselves shifting our own belief, and that's why I believe, right? By me healing myself and all this like mindset, wherever I go, I bring myself and my vibe. So by just being, not even having to interact with the principal or the teachers, just being in my surrounding is influencing them in seeing their own worth. And saying, hey, I deserve a higher pay. And if not, I'm going to go work for that private school. All right. Just seeing that will make them move. So people, like, they're matched to that system because they're matched their belief of like, I'm a good person. I give, endlessly. But that's where we're like, this is codependency, right? We don't want to, and not necessarily all the time, but a big time when you don't see your work, you just give and give. You don't want to lose your job. Like, I'm the good person. Well, you're good to everyone but yourself, because you burn yourself out trying to please everyone, right? And so I just enjoy how you said that. I'm like, yeah, you can see that everywhere. It's amazing. So I know you have a 5-step framework. Want to talk a little bit about that framework that you use in your consulting business, right?
Well, I use it. I haven't done all of it in consulting business. In the coaching space, with personal growth, I've done that because my book, I'm going to show it to you. Hold on.
Yes, she has a book. She wrote 2 books, right? 2 books.
I did. I wrote 2. One book, and it's interesting. One book, I wrote it on behalf of my mother. Before she passed away, it'll be 10 years tomorrow, actually, of her passing. And she wanted to write a book, but she never did. Again, not feeling worthy and all of that stuff. Like, she didn't know that, but as I'm going through this now, I understand. So I took her notes that she wrote, and then I flushed them all out and wrote a book on her behalf.
Sorry, I just want to interrupt quickly. I feel like you're like a mirror. Like, I mean, the world is a mirror of us, but my mom passed away 10 years ago on Saturday.
Oh, wow.
And she did leave a bunch of notes. Like, she had written a story or something. So I kept them. I still didn't type them off, but I'm like, this is like a mirror somehow. It's so cool. So sorry, please keep going on.
Oh, it's okay. I love it. So this is my second book, Embracing Grit for Greatness, Becoming Professionally Powerful Through Personal Empowerment. So it's pretty much the journey that I did, and people that actually saw my evolution that I did. I was able to transition like out of the K-12 system. I was able to go to a school full time. Then I was able to go be a professor, and they're seeing all the things that I'm doing. I'm not realizing that it's something big. It was like, no, something I have to do, right? But people kept asking me, what are you doing? How are you still moving, knowing that you had two tragic losses in your life and things like that? And I was like, well, things aren't perfect. I wish things would be better. But to the people on the outside, they were like, yeah, but you weren't where you were. How did you do that? So knowing what I did at the retreat and putting some of this work in with my students, I was like, okay, let me step back and actually tell people what I did. It doesn't matter that I haven't reached every goal that I wanted to, but whatever people are seeing.
We'll just say yet. You haven't reached them yet.
Yes, absolutely. So so the grit was, a lot of people know about grit, and I talk about Dr. Angela Duckworth. She brought it to light. It's not a new phrase, but it was back in the 70s, but she brought it to light like in the early 2000s. And I learned about the word grit when I was getting my PhD program. And one of the professors said, it's not, when you get to this level, it's really not about being smart. A lot of people can go to school and figure it out, but the reason why a lot of people don't have PhDs or they fall off is because they don't have the grit. Because it's not about being smart, it's the tenacity, determination, and the character that you're building along the way. Now, that went over my head when she first said that. I was like, whatever, lady, I need to finish. But as I started reflecting, I started analyzing grit. And I was like, well, I had grit going through that process. Am I going to apply grit to pick up my personal life? Because remember, I said I was so focused on my professional life that my personal life was down the toilet. And I was like, if I can grow professionally, I should be able to grow personally. So because of my logical mindset and I see things in frameworks and processes, I was like, okay, let's break down the steps. So grit, I broke it up into 5 parts. It was courage, conscientiousness, endurance, resiliency, and excellence over perfection. And courage, I had to be honest with myself, like, you are here, you got yourself in this mess or in this good place or wherever you are. That's where you did that, good, bad, or whatever, you did that. And then the courage to say, okay, and take ownership. And the courage to, when it's time to make a shift, to do that, because we can know that we did something, we know the solutions, but the courage is to actually take the step. So I was able to do that, to go to school full time, but then personally, it was take the step to go to that retreat, take the step to play full out and heal yourself. So that was courage. Conscientiousness, we don't use this word a lot, because I was like, what? But it's part of grit. And conscientiousness means being very detailed. And so when I looked at how I was operating professionally, I was very detailed about the specific things I wanted to accomplish and the plans and how to get there. Now, some of this is unconscious. You don't realize it because you do it. But when I had to figure out my personal life, it was like, no, you need to have a plan to fix your personal life as well. So I had to go and write out those steps, do those exercises, really write out what I wanted in life, and be very detailed about that. Because I used to treat life like it was just this thing over here happening. But when I was going to school, you knew the classes to take, you knew the assignments to take, you knew what to do, all of that. So it's the same thing. Endurance. I finished my PhD program in 3 years, and then I was able to go all the way through my professional, from teaching in the K-12 system all the way to higher ed, all of that before the age of 40, which is huge, the whole span. And it was like, well, how did I do that? Because some people stay in like one place for 10, 15 years, but it was the endurance. Like, okay, I know there's a shift. I'm going to keep going. This is really hard for me, but I can't stay here. And we know endurance for athletes, but it applies to our real lives too. Like, we have to condition ourselves, even when we don't think that we need to make moves, that endurance is mental a lot of times for us. So it was a lot of mental endurance, like doing that shadow work when I wanted to give up. And I was like, forget this. I don't want to do it. Or I used to think it was one and done. I was treating personal development like it was a classroom assignment. Like, okay, I did the paper, turn it in, I'm done.
What's my grade now? I want
Right,
to pass.
right. So I started, so I did the retreat and that was great. But when I had to come back home and do the work, I was like, oh, I can do this exercise once. And that was good. No, life doesn't work that way. So I had to condition myself to keep that endurance up. Then resiliency, being resilient, we hear Lisa talk about as being the bounce back muscle. And I really used a lot of those parts that she broke down, because people hear like, oh, you just get back up, but it's deeper than that. I just did a talk with some young women and I picked out 3 ways to bounce back that stood out to me. Was like the faith in yourself, that really belief, the know like you know. Like I knew I was going to finish my program in 3 years regardless. So I had to keep that same energy in my personal life, reaching certain goals. Like I know that I'm going to accomplish this. And then your highest choice muscle. You know, I was like, I never looked at life as having a highest choice, but we always have a choice. And it's like, well, what's in alignment to what you said you wanted? And then the last part, excellence over perfection. I used to say, oh my gosh, I'm a perfectionist. I used to wear it like it's a badge of honor.
Yes.
But that's not true. That's horrible. You know,
so much pressure.
It is. Now, I do say in my book that there were some aspects of being a perfectionist that served me well, because I'm going to get things done. Things are going to be in order. It's going to be nice. But there are the parts where it holds you back from not showing up fully. In school, it was like, look, you're going to get this paper. I know I did what I was going to do. And that's it. I didn't really have perfectionism when it came to school. And maybe because things came naturally to me, or I was like, you're going to get this, and I released it. But in my life, it was like I had to look a certain way. I had to dress a certain way. I had to talk a certain way. And I was holding that perfectionism that way. And I was like, no, it goes both ways. I'm going to show up as excellent and be my best representative as possible. And you get what you get. Not saying that you just throw anything out there, but we're not letting.
But why not?
Anything.
Yes, we can. As showing up means you're showing who you are at this moment. And this moment is exactly who you are. So there's no shame. And for me, perfectionism, right? I switch into one step at a time because if you go, I want to be perfect, as soon as you're like under perfect, you feel bad and you blame yourself. So that is not the right mind to stay. Say, I am perfect right now. What do I choose? Right? Like you say, we always have a choice. And that's what I also choose. That's why I also teach people is right now, how do you want to feel? Because you have the choice. You can have the choice to look at every perspective, at every situation in your life as good or bad, or like as it is. What one do you want? Because the universe will prove you right no matter what you believe. So that comes from a choice. And you know, that faith in yourself is, for me, it's the faith in the universe and the higher self. If you don't believe in yourself, people cannot believe in you because they're going to reflect. You're only going to attract what's a match to who you are, right? Yeah. And the knowing, I know this is purple. I don't hope it's purple, right? Everything has energy in the words. So if you're hoping that this is purple, you're telling the universe, I'm hoping this is my job, or I'm going to get the job. You're telling the universe, I don't trust you, I don't believe it, because you would say, I know this is it. So this is amazing. We're going to finish the first half hour for this podcast. Anyway, people can contact you.
Yes, so they can contact me. Get the free this live class that I have at drvernitafreegift.com. So DRVERNITA freegift, all one word, .com.
Amazing. Are you on social media as well? Instagram?
Yes, all socials. Dr. Vernita Glen White. Some variation of that. It'll pop up all platforms.
Perfect. Amazing. Thank you so much. And for me, I'm Mary of Mongrain. You can find me on Instagram at MaryMongrain90, as well as TikTok. And my website is maryofmongrain.com. So if you want to know more about her, we're going to be going on a different podcast on my YouTube channel. So you can go on maryofmongrain.com or on my channel, and we'll see you there for the next part. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.